everyone. Welcome to Hope in the Light of Suicide. I'm Tammy White. I'm the founder of the Bobby White Foundation, and I'm here along with my awesome friend.
And your co-host.
Yeah, my co-host.
Hello, everybody. I'm Bonnie Snyder. Welcome.
Well, we're back after a week hiatus. We were supposed to do the show last week, and it would have been our 50th episode. So today, this is our 50th episode, but we had to take a week off because we have some buddies around here that tested positive for COVID, and we had to shut down the studio and sanitize the studio, but we're back.
Sometimes there's that phrase that says the show must go on. Thank goodness for reruns and whatnot. But hoping that everybody is gets over this. Doesn't discriminate. It gets everybody.
It gets everybody. Oh yeah. But because of that, it would give everybody an extra week to purchase that book that we're starting to review.
Oh, our book is awesome.
So, but first, we have to take care of some business here. We still want to thank Rob and John, particularly Rob today because he has to carry the whole weight right now. But if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't be able to do what we do and bring this information and try and interact with you and help you as we kind of help ourselves too at the same time, and let you know that you're not alone through your journey as we aren't, in ours. So, and we want to thank Kindest for our website. So if you want to be more of a part of our show, you can help donate through the Kindness webpage there. Any amount is appreciated. Every little bit helps.
Oh, yeah.
Every little bit helps.
And then we're excited that we recently launched the page dedicated strictly to the show. I think as we said, the new exciting things that we have going on and the new direction that we have for, going into our second year is, hopefully becoming, a little more interactive where, those of you all who, watch the show, are able to, drop us a line, hey, really like the show, or, give us some ideas in terms of, topics that you might like to see us explore, on the show that is, whether it's, mental health related, suicide loss related, substance use, related. Grief, anything. I know that our show focuses on the overarching umbrella. Has always been suicide and suicide loss. At the same time, as you noticed as the intro was rolling, that we have all of those other little components. Or maybe I shouldn't call them little components, but all of those components wrapped up into that overarching, theme. So it's not always going to be just simply about suicide and loss.
No, because everything that goes into that reaches other realms of really, it all overlaps. Mm-hmm. But you can reach out to us on our Facebook page, on the new Facebook page, Hope in the Light of Suicide, or on the Foundation Facebook page also. We also have a new email address for the show, specifically hopetvshow at bobbywhitefoundation.org. All this stuff will be in the synopsis, and we're putting it out there on social media, so it's easy to find us in a slew of different ways.
And I want to give, as we're talking about the Facebook page, I want to give, like a special shout out to, when it popped up on my page, you go into it and you put, invite others to like the page.
Right.
And, so I just did a blanket, it's like 748 people, and I'm just thinking about, who's in my contact list. And I thought, I can go through and I can, pick and choose, this person might, this person. But then but then I was thinking, whether it is, grief and loss, regardless of what, like the grief is not always attached, to, someone we lost by suicide. One of my friends, for instance, lost her mom, this week. Wasn't a suicide. Her mom was ill, and unfortunately, my thoughts and prayers go out to the family. Anyway, I just said, you know what, select all, and I just hit select all.
It'll let you send that many at one time?
Oh yeah, it did for me.
Huh.
And so as I, as I'm looking, of course my page, when I have my phone, on. Ping, 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 ping.
Oh, really?
And I'm looking, how many people, a couple of people that not that I would say I wouldn't necessarily say, that this would be something that they would like. But again, a special shout out to, you, our viewers. We have those, those of you all that tune in on a weekly basis. And watch, and then the new traction, I guess, that we're getting, from the page, and it's like, wow, you might, I was like, then people calling, you do a show? Why didn't I know about this? And it's like, Tammy and I've been doing it for a year.
Where have you been?
We've been doing this for a year, and they're like, I didn't know. So yeah, a shout out to those of y'all who watch the show, those of y'all who have. Taking the time out to look at the page and like the page, we really appreciate it.
Most definitely we do, and like it, share it, interact with us, as much as you feel comfortable. As we introduce this new book that we're going to review, if you want to be a part of that, and you have comments or something that you're going through, if you go through the book with us, and if you don't feel like putting your name on it on the Facebook page, just email the show and let me know whether or not we have permission to share it. We won't use your name if you don't want us to, and that's fine. It's all whatever your comfort level is going to be, but we would like to have more feedback, and interaction, with you guys out there, because this is why we're doing it, is, not just for you and I to sit here and, okay, yeah, let's do this. We want to do this for you. So
yeah, I mean, the platform has always been designed for, education, support. I don't know that I would necessarily say put a face to, the epidemic, because, you haven't cornered the market. I haven't cornered, I don't, it doesn't only belong to me. It doesn't only belong to you. But just to, remind people, it's okay to talk about this. It's okay to, scream one day and be happy, be happy without feeling guilty. But, screaming and crying because, you know what, today I got to scream and cry.
Since you mentioned that, I was at an event last week, and for some reason I just knew I had to be there. This friend of mine, he was talking to a gal, and it was kind of like a business group seminar type thing. And this friend of mine, he knows, I don't know how he does it, but he just knows how to bring things out in people. And he was talking to this gal, and she had mentioned somebody had died by suicide, and I was on the other side of the room and couldn't really hear that well. She wasn't speaking into the mic, and so I was brought into the event. He's like, "Is Tammy White still here?" And her response, and I've interacted with her a couple of times very briefly since, is, "I'm so embarrassed." And I'm like, you don't have anything to be embarrassed about, and part of it was she's embarrassed that she feels the way that she does. 7, 8 years later, you know, and I'm like, that's not how it works. So we're going to get together here shortly and talk. But she had lost her brother. And, you know, don't feel embarrassed. Don't feel, you know, like something is wrong because you have this intense grief, no matter what the time period is, whether it's, you know, recent or 10 years from now or even longer. It's part of it. And we've said so many times, there's no direct road through this process.
You know, I think, you know, I don't want to sound contradictory. You know, sometimes we'll say something and it's like, we just contradicted each other on air. Did we really intend to do that? No, we didn't. So, you know, at the risk, let me rephrase that. At the risk of sounding contradictory, the one thing that I would, you know, change with that, you know, in the you know, case of, you know, this person, I wasn't at the event with you, mind you, you know, but having someone look at me, I feel guilty for feeling this way. And, you know, I think sometimes
she felt embarrassed.
Or embarrassed.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say guilty. I feel embarrassed for feeling this way. And I find what I tell people is, you feel whatever it is you need to feel, whether it is guilt, whether it is embarrassment, whether it is, you know, the trick becomes being okay feeling that way, you know. So it's like, I'm embarrassed because I feel this way and it's been 10 years. And, you know, to the point, you know, that you made to her and as we did on the show, there is no timeline. You know, it could be 20 years from now and you still might be feeling, you know, the effects of the loss. You know, I find that a lot of time, you know, the embarrassment for negative feelings tends to come back to this whole issue of the stigma that's attached to, you know, it's been, you know, such and, you know, it's been this period of time and you should get over it. It's been, you know, this period of time and you should have moved on by now. And, you know, which is what I like.
Yeah, it shouldn't bother you like it bothers you still. And that's not.
Like, come on, it's not a, you know, it's not a.
That's not how it works.
It's not a new wound, you know. Like, come on, wounds heal after, you know, a period of time. Like, well, yeah, they do. You know, however, I tell people, I don't know about anybody else when we're talking about, you know, grief, loss, and, you know, scars and wounds. And I'm like, you know, I have a surgical scar, you know, a couple of them. And when I'm looking at this, I'm like, the scar should have gone away. You know, or when some people were like, wait a minute, this surgery was, you know, years ago. Why do I still have the scar? And what you know, I use that as, you know, as a teaching moment.
Right.
That says, you know what? I remember the day after the surgery, when the staples or the stitches, you know, it's like one I had staples, one I had stitches, you know. But I remember the day after surgery when the stitches were there. You know, I remember it like it was yesterday. It was painful. I couldn't move. I didn't want to, you know, like, don't touch me, I'm going to punch you, you know. But, you know, again, I mean, it was, you know, some, you know, like, I need pain medication kind of meds, you know. But as time goes on, you know, it's like, okay, we don't feel the pain anymore. I don't feel, you know, the newness of, you know, the surgeon just went in and, you know, scalped me open kind of thing. But metaphorically, the scar is still there to remind me of the journey that I was on, you know. Now, I would look and say, it doesn't hurt anymore. Or, wait a minute, it doesn't hurt like it used to. Every once in a while, you know, with some, you know, surgical sites, depending on what they are, you still get that little, you know, the scar is itchy. Why is this itching now? It's, you know, it's been 10 years ago. I shouldn't have, that wasn't 10 years for me. Well, let me take that back. One is 10 years, the other one, you know, about 5. You know, it's been 5 years. Why do I still have an itch on this? Because it's supposed to be that way. You know, it reminds you, it's a reminder of something painful that you went through. But guess what? That's a badge of honor right now, or potentially it could be seen as a badge of honor.
Right.
So yeah, I like using my surgical scars as
That is I guess that's a pretty good analogy. Yeah, I can see that. I can go there. I can go there. So this new book that we are featuring, have you gone through a little bit of it?
I did. I skimmed it over, and I have to. This was a challenging weekend for me. Dealing with, when we talk about the stuff that we deal with, especially when I think of my, my other professional life, or I should say my professional life, because this is my fun life, if you want to put it like that. But when you're dealing with, especially children who are, in the grip of life is so stressful that I don't think I want to be here anymore. And you're like, whoa, not whoa, let's tap the brakes.
Right.
Then again, whoa, let's tap the brakes. Let's process what's going on. And so, I had a little, some excitement.
Yeah, and since you said that, I was thinking about this earlier today. It seems like, it's just my observation recently in the last few weeks, that in mostly from the news, we've had a tremendous streak of suicide losses. There was a couple over on the other coast. They were both sheriff's deputies.
I saw that one.
They were a couple married, young sheriff's deputies. They had a baby a month old, and they both took their lives.
That was it. He took his first, and then a couple days later she followed and took hers. And I didn't think they were married. I thought they were.
Well, they were
in a relationship with a child.
Right.
And so it made for me, as I'm looking at this, I forget where I was. It was something work related. And I don't remember if I texted you, Tammy. Did you see this?
Oh, yeah, you did. And then was it last week we lost one of the coaches, bullpen coach, I believe it was, from the Tampa Bay Rays.
I didn't hear about it.
Yeah, 28 years old. And then
was that deemed a suicide?
Yep.
Okay, I remember hearing as soon as you said the age, I'm like, did I hear about that one?
They didn't report it in the initial report, but a couple days later, that's what it was reported. And then the most recent is the young man who was head of Atlanta Transit, the train system in Atlanta. Did you see that?
I saw that one. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that was the most recent. And these are just ones that I've heard of just recently, as all happened within just a few weeks. So we really, whether or not, a lot of times people hide things so well that, and this is where I this zero suicide thing it's a great idea, but it's not going to happen. But we need to really try to pay close attention, as best as we can. We're never going to catch it all, because imagine all the people surrounding this young man with the Rays organization, and this young man. Reading about him, everybody had. It was kind of like a gal that worked with my husband. She actually was the boss's daughter, and it was like he always came into work with a smile on his face. He was always, he was the happy one, the encouraging one, and it was kind of like the same thing with this young guy. And you just, I don't know.
Well, I think, sometimes it's important for people to understand that, the signs aren't always there.
Right.
The other thing is, I think for me, when I hear someone who's, on the edge, and I hear them, place the blame, let me rephrase that. The person left behind, it's my fault that they are in this position. It's my fault that this is going on. And it's like, no, it's not your fault. It's very difficult to see the signs because they're not always there. Some people have this tendency of masking their feelings so well. I stopped counting how many times I heard, that was the last person I ever would have thought would have died by suicide. He or she had so much going for them. I can't understand why. Robin Williams, I mean, that's one that just kind of pops in my head. Who would have thought?
Well, the three that died he was a couple years earlier, but him, Anthony Bourdain, Kate Spade, are people that you would think were on top of the world. And here they are. It's like you don't see, you don't know the inward struggles. And I think sometimes, what I find in the case of some people, they don't know their own inward struggle or developing an ability or getting them to develop the ability to look inwardly and really do some self-reflection in terms of, what's the reason. I hate the word why, and I hate the word hate, but I also, I'm not a fan of the word hate either. But at this end, and then there's that but word, that why, if you don't hear why, it's like, are you blaming me for something? And so, it's like, well, why do you feel that way? Just because I do. Right.
Where, it becomes more, it should be more of a let's process, the reason behind this. Which is why, like I said, I love what I've skimmed so far in the book.
Well, we're going to be doing this together, so I got something for you. And we are going to be doing this together and showing, okay?
No problem.
So the book we're featuring now is How to Carry What Can't Be Fixed, A Journal for Grief. And this is probably even a more interactive book than the last one that we did was a bit interactive. So there's some extras that come with this book, but they don't come up until like the 4th chapter. So the first 4, we're gonna share some of our stuff as we go through it. And if you're going through it with us and you wanna share, your parts in this book, please, we would love that, and I'm sure that the rest of our viewers would too, because like I said, we're not alone in all this.
Well, I think the other thing too that it's important to point out is when we're doing a book review, sharing our story, like I think sometimes, I remember hearing this was said, are we doing therapy on the set?
That was brought up to us recently.
And it's, and I had to think about that for a moment. I was like, it does kind of have that vibe to it sometimes. I think it's important, to point out that, as we share our experiences and our journey, sometimes I know for me when, whether it's here on the show or even when I'm, doing groups, that I tell my participants all the time, I will use examples from my own experience And I think it's important from a couple of different perspectives. One, it puts a face and a reality to, the topic and what's going on. Because I find sometimes with books, to me, it's like, it doesn't matter how well the book is written. It can sometimes be very sanitized. And when I even think back, to, college days, I don't know, like when you're in college, sometimes our professors will be talking about something, and the next thing you know, you'll hear them, go off on a tangent about something they did, and it's like, oh, I understand the point that they're trying to make. I have no problem disclosing. When I had a 504 when I went to school. My brain process is different. And, I could talk about a piece of bubble gum. And that piece of bubble gum was to make the point, I want you to understand, or so I can understand what did this topic or what did this theme mean. What does bubble gum do with this? And I was like, oh, now I understand why you're making the connection between the bubble gum and what we're talking about. Something simplistic. But, it is, partially therapeutic, to share your story. It's also more so, to kind of highlight and give you an example of what's
and it makes it real. It's not, it's not coming from a clinician or somebody that's telling you something. Now, that's the other side.
Wait a minute.
That's the other side.
It's not meant to be clinical.
Right. It's coming from people who've lived the experience.
Yes.
It's so.
So anyway, let's dive into chapter 1.
But first, there's a couple of things I wanted to highlight from the introduction, and she gives you kind of like a roadmap to go through the book in the introduction, and I think we've said these things just in different ways, and I don't think it hurts to say it again in different ways, because people are going to hear things differently. But the introduction is finding your way with this book and your grief. And I highlighted a couple of things in here that grief isn't a problem to be solved. It's an experience to be carried. And if you're going to survive your grief, you need to find ways to inhabit grief, to live between those two extremes of all better and hopelessly doomed.
I like that. The other thing, too, what I found with, chapter 1, where, she titles this chapter, "The Story Begins." And I was equally struck by the very, very first line in the book where it says, "What does storytelling have to do with your grief?" And I'm like, oh, that's, because when you read a book, that's an interesting way to start a book. And then I started reading, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I love what she's doing. It's almost like the lights went on. Not that the lights were off. But no, seriously, I love where how she started it with that question as well, and then followed it up. So, Anyway, back to what you were saying about grief is not an easy road, and yet here we are together anyway, about to embark. Even that reluctant part of the path as a whole. That's the other part that I like.
And I like this section that she put in here, and I should have highlighted that and put it on a visual where she took out a conversation. I thought it was kind of cool, from the Lord of the Rings, a conversation between Frodo and Sam. Frodo says, "I can't do this, Sam." And Sam replies, "I know, it's all wrong. By rights, we shouldn't even be here, but we are. It's like the great stories, Mr. Frodo, the ones that really mattered, full of darkness and danger they were. And sometimes you didn't want to know the end, because how could the end be happy? How could the world go back to the way it was when so much bad had happened? But in the end, it's only a passing thing, this shadow. Even the darkness must pass. A new day will come, and when the sun shines, it will shine out the clearer. Those were the stories that stayed with you. That meant something, even if you were too small to understand why. But I think, Frodo, I do understand. I know now. Folk in those stories had lots of chances of turning back, only they didn't. They kept going because they were holding on to something.
And she follows that with, you're doing this work because you want something for yourself, whether your grief is a journey or an adventure or just some hard thing you have to live, and you've traveled and you hate all travel metaphors, you still need a place to begin. Beginning your journey with something creative can help you get out of your thinking and into the deeper truth of your heart. Henceforth, as we're looking at this, the metaphors, that we use when we're explaining, or processing through the process, or explaining the process, or let me go back to what I originally said, processing the process. Those metaphors are very, I like them because in a lot of ways too, they tend to take the sting off of the reality. Not that it's meant to, dissipate or make the reality seem less significant.
Yeah, just put a coat over it.
Yeah, it's kind of like, let me, if I do a comparison between, say, like grief and anger, someone is, in this fit of rage, and you're trying to figure out what is the best way, or not best way, what is a strategy that I can use to calm this person down, or to get them to, take a step back and go, all right, focus, focus, focus. Not that I want the anger to go away. I just want you to focus. And I remember, to use this as an example, I forget, I don't know, I may have told this story once before, I don't recall. But I remember myself being really, I was so angry about something. I was just, yeah. I mean, yap. And I was home. And I'm just raging about this thing. And my ex-husband, he's listening to me, I'm venting off of him. And, And I just remember him looking at me saying, I have feet. What? And, he repeated, I have feet. And I stopped for a moment and I said, what in the fill in the blank are you talking about? And what does your feet have to do with, and he just stopped and he looked at me and he says, but you're not as angry as you were anymore.
Oh, gee, yeah.
And I had to think for a moment, and I'm like, oh my God. So that, has been this running joke, or had been this running joke, throughout our marriage, like one of his birthdays, I got him a cake and it had a picture of his feet, like on my phone, and strategically took a picture of his feet, But anyway, using that as an example is sometimes having those distractors, is there, designed to take some of the sharpness off of, the pain and the emotion.
Well, and I came to a realization just recently, within the last few weeks, because I would have these anger sessions for like the stupidest things. Mm-hmm. And I was reading something, or actually I had heard it, and I was driving, and that's where some of it comes about. And I might have been listening to a book or something, and a quote, and I wrote it down, but I had remembered it for quite a while. Anger is grief in disguise.
Yes.
this was such an epiphany to me a few weeks ago. And just that realization has made a difference. And so if I'm in those kinds of situations now, I can recall that, and I'm like, whoa, step back. This is really what's happening, not what you think is happening.
And I think that's, hearing you say that is a really nice segue into what her next topic is, where it says what's normal. And, what she says here is, because we don't usually talk about the realities of grief, some people aren't aware of the many forms that grief takes. While your, quote, symptoms, end quote, might feel weird, you're probably not alone in experiencing them. Normal grief covers a lot of territory. And she has a list of, a lot of different, symptoms that one might experience when they're going through grief. And as I'm looking at these, I'm like, some of them like, I never would have thought to put that there. But, she has, run through these really quick. Insomnia, physical exhaustion, time loss, confusion, sadness, anger. I was surprised by clumsiness.
Oh, not me.
Sleeping all the time. Anxiety, nightmares, intense dreams, loss of appetite, loss of interest, feeling like you don't belong, eating everything, frustration, sense of unreality, loneliness, memory loss, stomach pains, chest pains, and other physical sensations, trouble concentrating, hard time reading, short attention span, restlessness, hypersensitivity, phantom aches and pains, interpersonal challenging, nothing has meaning, everything has meaning, inability to cry, numbness, mood swings, crying so hard you want to gag or throw up, everyday tasks seem confusing, dark sense of humor, screaming in the car, crying silently, feeling different from anyone else, feeling short-tempered, abandoning your shopping cart at the grocery store, feeling intense love for everything around you. And like one of the things that where is it? The dark sense of humor. When I read that one, I was like, I'm in trouble.
Okay, when I came to this part, I took my highlighter pen out. I don't know how many that you just read, but I have like probably over half of them highlighted.
Yeah, there's something that that I look at it, and it's one of those things where I think it's important for anybody especially when they're throes of grief, is looking at this and saying, okay, what are any of these a direct result of the grief, or any of these, just my normal personality. Again,
right.
Like I said, when I read Dark Sense of Humor, I kind of I chuckled at that one because, I remember, before I moved to Florida, I worked, with a difficult population, and people used to ask me, how do you do this? And I was like, I have a weird sense of humor. And I had to ask myself, I was like, weird sense of humor because, but then it dawned on me, that was my way of dealing with some of the horrific stuff that I had to listen to on a day-to-day basis, as it related to my death. Basically, it kept me sane. And so, surprised, not surprised. I'm going to say pleasantly surprised. Let me rephrase this. Pleasantly surprised to see the dark sense of humor is that, that's another way that we express ourselves.
And it can be a coping mechanism. One of my nephews was a sheriff's officer here locally for, 7 years. And my nephew can have a really odd sense of humor, especially when it came to his job. And listening to him sometimes was like, oh my gosh. And I'm kind of glad right now he retired from that profession. But yeah, I can see that being used as a coping mechanism too.
Oh yeah, and I mean, getting into some of the things that when you're talking about that odd sense of humor as it relates to your job, I'm like, well, I won't tell you, off camera, this is some of the things that we used to talk about, again, it was looking at this, it almost, for me, it became full circle. This was just another way to cope.
Well, and you take that from as a coping mechanism from your working life and transfers to your personal life, especially in traumatic situations or stressful situations. It's kind of like transference.
We call it transference, countertransference, and it's hard. It is hard sometimes. For us, and I'm not just talking about those of us in the field. When we're dealing with, something traumatic, separating like that. If this is hitting me personally. And what part of it is, life has to go on. It's like that, piece of us that says, okay, you know what, I have no control over this. The only thing I can control is me. I don't want to control, at the same time, I really don't want to control me. I just want me to just do whatever me wants or needs to do to get over this. And, I love the, as I'm looking at the list, and this list is not, this is not the end all be all.
Oh, no. Well, because even some of the other books that we have has similar lists like this and has different things on it. So, no, there's a slew of things. And in that section, before that we were talking about, just before this, there's like 2 pages, almost 2 full pages from where she's not, for you to write. She says here, draw, write, or, collage, whatever. This is a book to be, and we had this discussion, I think, when we first introduced the book about tearing out books and, but this is a book that's made to do stuff in, so please do it. I haven't done the writing part yet because I want to kind of do it along, with everybody else. So like next week, we'll do it like a mini review of this, what everybody's done this week. And, and share, right?
We can. I just won't write in the book. It's just one of those. It's sacrilege to write in the book. And I shouldn't say that I've written in books before.
It's and I used to think that too, but now I write in books and highlight in books all the time, so long as they're staying with me,
and I think for me that's the key thing, because I look at it as, what if someone wants to borrow the book? Not that, I have an issue with sharing, but there are those times where I want my thoughts to be mine.
Right.
The other side of it is, if I were to loan this book out, for example, I don't want my thoughts to skew, someone else or influence what someone else might put
Well,
down.
in these types of books, they're meant to. It's not like a one-time thing that you're just going to go through this book and put it back on the shelf. These are the kind of books that you're going to come back and reflect on time and time again, and possibly your opinions, your thoughts, your feelings may be totally different. You can see how maybe you've changed, maybe things are still the same, But that's what these are for. That's why you're supposed to do that in these books.
And I do that as a activity with some the people that I work with. I tell them, write your story down, write whatever comes to mind. Don't put any thought into it.
Don't pressure yourself to do it.
Right, just go free. We call it free thinking. Just free flow. Write write just freely. But then I want you to put it down, put it away, and leave it alone. Come back to it in a couple of days. Read it, perhaps, or I don't even want you to read your first draft. I want you to write another version. And you'll find over time that not only does your story get easier to write, there are times that you're able to I hate the word, I shouldn't hate. I don't want to use the word embellish, because to me embellishment tends to have that negative connotation to it. However, the more, you are able to write and, put your story down on paper, the easier it becomes. So after a while, it's kind of like, I have this scar, it's brand new, it's got stitches in it, it's going to hurt, got to take pain meds and whatnot, but, after a while, you're able to use, that body part, or you're able to get up and, freely walk around not in pain. I find journaling that same...
I guess in that context, I could use my broken leg and my broken wrist as an example of that. That's where my clumsiness in that part of it came in. This next section, I really like the kind of like title of it.
Why is my brain so wonky?
Why is my brain so wonky?
We use that word a lot around the office, and when I read that, I'm like, oh my God, wonky is in a book.
I was like, when I read that, I was like, oh, see, it's not just me.
But I like how she goes on to say, the cognitive changes are common, and that memory, concentration, attention, how they require, a lot of power from us. And when it is disrupted by grief, it's normal or it's natural, to understand that it's almost like running out of, I could be clipping down the highway, and if everything in my car is working just fine, the trip is smooth. But if I hit a bump in the road, or I hit a pothole and I blow out a tire, my car might still run, but it's not going to run as well as it did before the blowout.
Well, and I'm going to do a little thing for the show next week, because I love this pie chart that she shows about your brain power. She has this pie chart, and what did it say here? Map out your... It's an exercise for you to do, but she has it on here, and it's like 99% of your brain maybe work or doesn't work, and 1% does, or vice versa. Yeah, it's like this here. Right now, the enormity of grief, trauma, sadness, and loneliness takes up 99% of those units. The remaining 1 unit is what you have for the mundane, ordinary skills of life, such as organizing carpools, funeral details, also just breathing, keeping your heart beating, accessing cognitive, social, relational skills. I mean, just things that you would just automatically do and not even have to think about. Is it there or is it not there?
Oh, it is. I stopped, and this was even before grief, for any, this. Where she goes, remember the kitchen utensils, go in the drawer and not in the freezer.
Right.
It makes me think of, how many times have I, I'm on the phone talking to somebody, and, you hear like, what's going on? I can't find my phone.
Yeah, I've done that so many times.
You're talking on it. And, you sit back and you ask yourself, how did, where did that disconnect come, that I'm talking to you on the phone, but I'm looking for my phone? Or my other, one that I think gets me from time to time is, and I'm blind without my glasses, so I'm going to, they'll be up here, and where are my glasses? They're on your head. Oh. And I'm like, oh, here they are. I don't know that I've ever found, my keys in the refrigerator or something.
Yeah, mine hasn't really, that part, been that extreme. The phone thing, I have definitely done several times. It's like, and whoever I'm on the phone with, they can tell you're distracted. It's like, what are you doing? I'm looking for my phone. I've got there's something I was going to show you or tell you.
Your phone's
talking on it?
Your phone's in your hand?
I've done, and this wonkiness leads into, and I remember one day I said to my mom, brain fog is really real. It is a real thing. Because I was in the wonky part, not realizing that's part of the other part. It's a real thing. And I was like, I've always heard about it, but I didn't realize it was actually a real thing. And what brought it with me, and I don't even remember the incident that I even remember when it like kind of clicked. It was something they call it different things, but it was at the time what made it click for me was widow's fog. And I was like, that's the brain fog that everybody talks about. I never even realized that. This is really what it is. This is that experience.
And, I think it's important to point out that fog happens because, when you're processing grief, it is not something that you're doing outwardly. A lot of it is in your head. There's nothing, I should say nothing. It's not as controllable as I'm going to the gym, I'm jumping on the treadmill, and I'm going to, do whatever length of time I'm going to do on a treadmill. That brain fog just kind of happens. We don't. Exercising more control over it can sometimes be difficult because it's not something that we see, and oftentimes people don't recognize that we're in that fog because there's nothing outward. You see me on a treadmill, oh, she's working on some pounds. You see me off in a glaze, you may not realize that my brain is looped somewhere, or I'm in that fog.
Well, yeah, and she says here that much of the work of early grief, and it doesn't even have to be early grief, is done inside your head and your heart. That's what it is.
But she does say, take it. We hear this phrase all the time, especially in recovery, one day at a time.
One day at a time.
Step by step.
And even if it just has to be an hour at a time, that's what you do. What you do, and that's the way it's going to be. Now we're coming up we still have a little bit left of this, but we kind of
rules of survival. That's it, and that takes us to chapter 1.
Well, now wait a minute. There's some exercises here.
Would you?
There's some exercises here. So, I don't know, the pages are now pages 14 and 15. So this week, this is our part of our interaction, and any of you that want to do this with us, see, it's happening again. We're coming towards the end. So, in here, there's some exercises to do. You can't see. The light gets it. There's a vase full of flowers to color. And then there's accomplishments, one day at a time. So there's little trophies here or ribbons. So as many as you can do, even if it's only one, color one, and what was your accomplishment that you feel good about?
And some of those, I think it's important to note out that, some of those accomplishments may seem like things that we do on a day-to-day basis because, what she has here is, did you drink enough water? Exactly. Did you brush your teeth? It's almost like, did I brush my teeth? That's, that's, that happens automatic. There's certain things you do when you get up in the morning, and you're doing your, daily, sabbatical hygiene routine. Doesn't everybody brush their teeth in the morning? If you're in the early throes of it, brushing teeth may not be high on the priority. Not that, we don't care about oral hygiene. It's not a priority at the moment.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be a big accomplishment. It can be a little accomplishment. whatever it is. So we're going to do this along with you, and we're going to share ours next week. And if you want to share with us, you can like I said, you can share it on our Facebook page if you want, or if you want to email us, more information, if you want to share, whether, you want to tell us, want people to know it was you or not, we can keep it private and just share, however you feel comfortable doing it, that's what we're going to do.
And what do you think about it as we, round this out? We talk about the rules of survival next time, given the fact that, this hour just goes by quick.
I know, yeah, we're going to have to, because, I didn't even think I thought we were going to get through this and like part of 2, but that's not happening. So we'll review this. We'll talk about rules for survival. And, please like and share. You can get this book on Amazon. If Rob can throw the QR code up really fast, I think we have it. But if not, that's okay. It's on our Facebook page. It's on both Facebook pages and on the website. There you go. And it'll direct you right to the link so that you can pick up this book and have it for the next show.
Yeah, and always remember those suicide helplines. Reach out, and remember,
there's always hope. Thanks for joining us.